I learned many lessons from American wars this century, whether we call them wars or not. One of the lessons is that, contrary to what public transit cynics have said, a few of whom have commented on my videos, we do have money for ambitious public transit projects. It's just that the United States chooses to spend so much money destroying the infrastructure of nations abroad instead of building our own public transit infrastructure back at home. To highlight that fact, I'm going to take a look at the cost of two recent wars, or foreign interventions, or whatever you want to call it, and see how much public transit you can build for the cost of that war or intervention. Let's start with the war in Iran. The first few days of it cost as much as $16 billion dollars with more expensive estimates, and over $11 billion dollars with the less expensive estimates. That is in the price range of the K-Line Northern Extension in Los Angeles, which has an estimated price tag of $11 to $15 billion. It's more than the estimated cost of the Phase 2 extension of New York's 2nd Avenue subway. And the 2nd Avenue subway doesn't exactly have a reputation for being cheap. Sit on that. The first few days of a foreign war is more expensive than the cost of Phase 2 of what I think is the world's most expensive subway. A few days before I record this video in mid-May, there was an estimate from the Pentagon that the cost of the war has gone up to $29 billion. That is nearly double the $16 billion cost of building a new commuter rail tunnel between New York and New Jersey, as well as replacing a nearly 100-year-old tunnel used by over 200,000 commuters daily. This is a transit project that, I must point out, the Trump administration has attempted to freeze funding for. Transitioning from the 2026 war in Iran to the past war in Iraq, the Iraq War cost up to $3 trillion. In contrast, the building of the Sepulveda Transit Corridor in Los Angeles, which has the potential to transform America's second largest city, has a cost estimate of $25 billion. At that cost estimate, you have to build this 13-mile line 120 times over to reach the cost of the Iraq War. That comes out to 1,560 miles of subway, which is a lot when you consider that the United States has just over 860 miles of subway. Just a hunch that it will take me a lot of videos to propose 1,560 miles of subway, despite how ambitious my transit proposals are on this channel. To further compare the cost of mass transit to the cost of war, the libertarian think tank Cato Institute says that the price tag of President Barack Obama's high-speed rail plan was over $1 trillion, while the US High-Speed Rail Association plan would cost over $3 trillion. That price tag has been used as an argument against building high-speed rail by the likes of those from the Cato Institute. But when I consider how the Iraq War costs up to $3 trillion, I then realize that the money my country could have spent to get people out of cars, onto public transit, and protected from volatile oil markets was instead spent on foreign wars that made those oil markets more volatile. And wars that the United States started, making those markets more volatile in the process. Make that make sense. So whenever I get a video comment to one of my fantasy rail proposals that says something along the lines of, how would this be paid for? I guess my reply is, by not going to these costly and ridiculous wars. The United States has plenty of money. It's just that we choose to spend it on war, rather than on making infrastructure better for our own citizens. What a shame. That said, I do think it's worth acknowledging that cost for building train transit in the United States is more expensive than in other parts of the world, including other developed nations. That is something I'll need to make a video about at some point as well, but for now, I just want to name the fact that if we got our spending on public transit projects more under control, then we'd be able to build even more for the money that we instead used for senseless wars. Even without doing that, though, we'd be able to build a lot if we spent money on infrastructure rather than on wars. One other thing I'd like to acknowledge is that the money we have spent on war shouldn't just be spent on public transit instead. But considering that mass transit better connects people to jobs and housing, the two most important things to have in order to survive, I think you can make an argument that good mass transit infrastructure is one of the more important things to invest in.